Hello everyone, welcome back. We'll spend a bit more time in the die-like city of Harran for our second entry in this mini-series dedicated to both the Xeon era Radeon cards and to this game. Speaking of which, the game was also free on Epic Games back in April 2023. If you missed it, I wouldn't worry too much. There is a good chance that the deal may come back. Just keep an eye for it. This time around I opted to try running the game on the mid-range cards from the Xeon family. The R7260 using a cut-down version of the Bonner GPU, the R7260X, previously known as the HD7790, running the full version of the previously mentioned GPU, and the R7265, a rename of the HD7850, using a cut-down version of the Pitcairn GPU. These 2 GB GB DDR3 video cards were then placed in the same good old Z230 workstation, using the same i7-4772 equivalent Xeon and 32 GB of DDR3 at 1600 MHz running in dual channel. At 1080 resolution and low settings, the R7260 runs the game at a comfortable 54 FPS, with a 1% loss value in the mid-40s. Now I know that FPS purists will require at least 120 FPS for average and 90-41% lows, but let's face it, you will not 360 no-scope anyone anytime soon in this game. The bigger brother of the Bonner GPU runs a bit better, with averages in the low 60s and 1% lows in the low 50s. Any of these cards would run the game just fine. The extra performance that the R7265 brings can be put in the increasing of the graphical fidelity, if you're willing to part with the 81 FPS on average and 67 FPS 41% lows. The following resolutions serve only as means to measure the extra headroom each card has, in case you do decide to increase the graphical quality, but you still want to retain the above 30 FPS 41% lows. At 1600x900 and low settings, the R7260 averaged 68 FPS and provided 1% lows in the high 50s. This is a bit better than what the bigger brother, the 260X, provided at 1080. Speaking of the 260X, the MSI card averaged 81 FPS and the 1% lows reached almost 70. The card has a bit of headroom now, so one could consider increasing some graphical quality options. As for the Pitcairn based R7265, the average FPS crept up to almost 100 FPS and the 1% lows to almost 80. Good game experience and a pretty decent headroom for increasing the graphical fidelity. Now, it may make little sense to drop to 720 resolution to increase graphical options. The resolution downgrade might make that a moot point. But dropping to 720 will increase the FPS, as seen on the screen. The R7260 averages in the mid-80s and provides 1% lows in the low 70s. The R7260X averages about 20 FPS more and the 1% lows stays in the high 70s. And the R7265 went up to 116 FPS on average, but the 1% lows stayed in the high 60s. Again, this is enough headroom to increase visuals, but the resolution drop might make that a bit too little too late. These cards seem to be doing okay at 1080 and low settings. 1600x900 is also an option if you want to trade some of the excess performance for an increase in some visual options. As for 720 resolution, it can work, but only if you run a smaller sized monitor. Also, the R7265 results start to smell like a CPU bottleneck, but it will be up to the next video to clear this up. And speaking of, in it we'll see how demanding the game can be, and we'll make that attempt on the R9 segment of the Xeon family. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it. As for this video, well, we're done. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you for the next one.